Right now, a jury of 8 people in Washington, D.C. are dealing with a very important question. They're trying to decide what price should be paid for telling lies that led to a violent insurrection, eroding the fabric of our democracy and forever upending the lives of 2 people who, through no fault of their own at all, became the subject of a conspiracy theory. Testimony has ended and closing arguments have wrapped in former Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani's defamation trial. He's being sued by Georgia election workers Ruby Freeman and her daughter Shaye Moss. Since the judge in the case, Judge Beryl Howell, has already ruled that Giuliani defamed Freeman and Moss, the jury is now deciding how much Giuliani will have to pay. The day started with the expectation that he made himself that Giuliani would testify on his own behalf. He vowed just yesterday to, quote, give the whole story in a bit of a dramatic press conference. But once it was clear he was reneging on that today, the trial proceeded to closing arguments. And when that happened, Freeman and Moss's lawyer, Michael Gottlieb, asked the jury to award them $24 million each. Gottlieb said that Giuliani, quote, has no right to offer up defenseless civil servants up to a virtual mob in order to overturn an election. Very true. His closing arguments came on the heels of emotional testimony by Ruby Freeman yesterday. Over the course of 90 minutes, Freeman recounted how she was hounded by death threats, messages calling for her to be lynched. It got so bad that the FBI told her she was not safe at home. And as she said yesterday, quote, this has all started with one post. A post by Giuliani, of course, you all may remember that, on December 3rd of 2020, that claimed to show footage of Ruby Freeman and her daughter pulling suitcases stuffed with ballots. Of course, it showed no such thing. And in his closing arguments, Giuliani's attorney acknowledged that his client, quote, committed wrongful conduct, explaining that he didn't take the stand because, quote, we feel like these women have been through enough. And if you believe that explanation after the hell Rudy Giuliani has put these 2 women through, well, you haven't been probably paying attention enough to everything that's happened over the last couple of years. On Tuesday, Judge Beryl Howell said that Giuliani defamed Freeman and Moss once again when he spoke to reporters outside court and accused them of changing votes. The very same allegation that has led to this case in the first place. His lawyer also said that his client, quote, hasn't exactly helped himself with some of the things that have happened in the last few days. No kidding. Referring, of course, to Giuliani's behavior outside of the courthouse earlier yesterday. Well, that is definitely true, unquestionably. What a thing for your own lawyer to admit about you. And that is where we start this hour with NBC News Justice reporter Ryan Riley outside the courthouse, plus former Deputy Assistant Attorney General and former U.S. Attorney Harry Litman, and here at the table, senior opinion columnist for the Boston Globe and co-host of the excellent Sisters-in-Law podcast, Kimberly Atkins-Storr. Ryan, I want to start with you because you've been in the courthouse. Walk us through, I outlined a little bit of it, but what happened in the court today?
Yeah, so we are all sort of expecting this big day of Rudy Giuliani's testimony because he's been telling us that this big day was coming, right? His lawyer told the jury that he was going to testify, and then he told reporters that he was going to testify, that the truth would come out. That was ultimately something that got brought back up in court before the judge because, of course, the truth that he's spreading is a lie. That is what this case is all about. But he still believes those lies that he was spreading, and that's really where this divide comes about between his lawyer and the client himself. Rudy Giuliani's lawyer, I think, really had trouble controlling what his client was saying this week, quite obviously, when he was making those statements after court each day that really contrasted with what his attorney was trying to say in court. As you sort of mentioned there, his lawyer has actually been saying complimentary things about the plaintiffs here, that they're good people, that they didn't deserve what happened to them, and that Rudy Giuliani did wrong here. Basically, what his lawyer is trying to argue is that the damages shouldn't be as high as the plaintiffs are seeking here and trying to make that case to the jurors. But Rudy Giuliani is on a whole different planet. He's thinking that he did nothing wrong in the first place and that these lies are true. So really just it's quite an extraordinary event when you have this former mayor of New York City who just really seems to be lost in these conspiracy theories still today.
Rudy Giuliani is an entirely different planet is an evergreen statement, it turns out, that could be said many times over the past couple of years. So, Harry, I mean, Rudy has been saying all sorts of lies, making up all sorts of lies, including about Ruby and Shaye Moss. But were you surprised? I mean, yesterday he said he was going to testify. He did it in his own press conference. Were you surprised that he didn't end up testifying today, Harry?
You know, the short answer is no. A lot of defendants bluster, and Giuliani is the king of blusterers. and then don't take the stand. This was his fourth visit to planet Earth, and the contrast between his public blustering, which he's still doing to this day, and his basically silence in court where he has nothing to say couldn't be stronger. And I'm sure the jury saw it as well. It's a civil case, so the attorney for Moss and Freeman were able to say, look, he didn't testify, but you saw who did. And his lawyer has really nothing to go on. When your lawyer is saying, oh, he didn't help himself too much this week and these women have suffered enough, man, you know you are in a world of hurt. And that's exactly where he is now.
What a thing for your lawyer to say about you. So the big question now, Harry, is how much will they have to pay, and how does the jury decide that? So how does the jury decide that? We obviously saw Michael Gottlieb, their lawyer, ask for a specific amount. What does the jury weigh?
Well, it's not easy because normally they would weigh something. You would have had Giuliani coming in with information about his, say, net worth, so you could decide whether to punish him. But he stonewalled that all the way through. You would have had some points he made. They have something to go on. They have an expert who came forward and said, here's what it'll cost to sort of compensate them for the misery that Giuliani has occasioned. And they saw their own testimony, but it's fairly loose. Maybe Giuliani hopes that it'll be loose enough that it'll be revisited on appeal if it's too high. Again, if that's your hope, you're in a very sad situation. They have a little bit to go on in terms of expert testimony from the plaintiffs, and basically nothing from Giuliani. All they pointed to, his lawyer, in closing, were the statements by the plaintiffs. That's literally all he could point to.
So it'll be interesting to see where they kind of land on. So, Kim, Michael Gottlieb had a very powerful ending today in the courthouse. And while this defense strategy, he said, basically, the defense strategy in this case is no secret. Rich, famous people have valuable reputations, and ordinary people are irrelevant, replaceable, worthless. Mr. Giuliani's defense is his reputation. His comfort and his goals are more important than those of Ruby Freeman and Shaye Moss. That is fiction, and it ends today. I think for so many people who have been watching completely frustrated and horrified by what we've seen here, it's like, yes, exactly. But tell us a little bit about the stakes in this case and the outcome.
Yeah, the stakes are very important because it's not just that Shaye Moss and Ruby Freeman are ordinary citizens. They are people who volunteered to give their time to help the administration of the democratic process. Mm-hmm. They were there as election workers. These are people that we want to encourage to participate in this. But because of the lies that Rudy Giuliani was telling, their lives have been turned utterly upside down. And the valuation that the experts that were offered in this case puts that in the tens of millions of dollars that it would take to restore their reputations. In the beginning, Rudy Giuliani's attorneys were saying, look, of course, liability was already established, as you pointed out. This is about damages, and that a damage award so high would ruin Giuliani. It would be ruinous for him. But we've seen him since double down on it, perhaps open himself up to more liability. At this point, all his attorneys can do is staunch the bleeding and say, look, no mas. Just try to understand that he did wrong and please show some mercy. But they have so little standing at this point. I expect a very high damages award.
Yeah, we will see. Ryan, one of the kind of side stories today a bit was Giuliani's co-defendant in the Fulton election case was in the courtroom today, and his name is Harrison Floyd. He actually faces criminal charges for trying to pressure Ruby Freeman. How could he have been in the courtroom? Does that violate anything? But tell us a little bit about what that scene was and what you may have observed.
I don't think it actually would violate necessarily anything unless there's something down in his case. But he's, it's obviously a public court, so he's allowed to come into it. Yeah, but a very sort of bizarre spectacle. We did just hear, I got a note from our producer that the jury had a question for the judge, and actually that's what the attorneys were just meeting about just now when they came back into the courtroom. They want to see the presentations, the PowerPoints that the plaintiff's attorneys actually put together, laying out the damages and how they got to that estimate, because it wasn't wasn't introduced in evidence. It's not something that they're going to be able to provide, those PowerPoints, but the underlying information, at least, is obviously already been presented to the jury. So they're taking a very close look at this and deciding whether or not they believe that estimate is on the target.